So hey, this is Rap Attack. This is a bit of an experiment. I'm not sure how this is going to go, but my idea is that being one of Australia's first generation B girls, hip hopper, that I would talk about just that. Well, for me, the journey began in the 70s, very late 70s. I didn't know of the term hip hop, but I was to find out much later. I think it was probably early 80s before I found out what that term meant, or even heard of that term. Um, we were from the funk generation, me and the people that I hung out with, and we listened to a lot of American music, and the DJs used to go over to America once a year, bring a whole lot of vinyl back, and we'd get very excited about, the prospect of what they were going to bring back. I didn't understand the transition from funk to hip hop. I I did hear, okay, well, this is a rapper, okay, this is something different, and all the other elements and things like that came into being, but I didn't understand the consequences of it. And the first element that I found that I got involved in with hip hop would have been the dance side of things, but I wasn't truly, how could I put it? That wasn't truly hip hop. I mean, I was a popper. I didn't even know that term back then. We said street dancer. And later I was to find out that, the correct term. Being in Australia, we were isolated, so we weren't privy to a lot of terms and where it came from, who invented what, or anything like that. The politics that I see today in the hip hop community, especially with the advent of the internet, we didn't have back then. Of course, if you saw someone that you thought wasn't very good at dancing or beatboxing or rapping or whatever, you did speak your mind, but you couldn't back it up with anything. If you didn't like it, you just didn't like it, or if you liked it, you did like it. So it was a very different time like that. Lots of people also, when it came to clothing, you couldn't walk into a store and automatically buy a street dancing outfit or an urban outfit. That didn't exist. There was nothing really set. I myself personally modelled myself probably a bit of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, a bit of African Bambaataa, especially with the fur on the shoulders and the chains and all of that sort of thing. It was a little bit punk, because especially with the studs and the chains and the hats that I would get from army disposal stores. So it was a bit of a mishmash for me about how I expressed myself clothing-wise. I was very crazy when it came to jewellery as well, and accessories. How the hell I danced with all that stuff, I have no idea. And I did eventually, even though I was originally a so-called popper, I did move to the floor later on. It's a bit hard to remember exactly years, but I know it was in the 80s. And that was mainly because there was a shortage of women doing that sort of thing and keeping it up, keeping fit, able to perform in shows, because by this time, by the 80s, I was performing. Originally, this was something that I did in a club on the street, um, but I didn't think of it as a performance thing. I don't think any of us did. It was, people would ring us up or they would see us at the club, like the club to get spotted as a street dancer was VIP, which was a club in King's Cross, and it was above Lay Girls where the Carlotta and all of that, you know, the boys would do the shows, boys that wanted to be girls. And I'm sure there's a better term than what I'm using, but anyway, they would do these fabulous shows with, you know, big costumes and everything like that. Anyway, the hardest core club that I've ever been to that played the best funk, soul, etc., had the best DJ of all time, that's Michael, was VIP, above Lay Girls. When I started going there, it was called Carousel, not VIP. And I think even further back, what was it called? No, can't quite remember. But anyway, Carousel was a disco club. So if you were a competition disco dancer, which I also did, yes, I was a disco dancer, that was the place to go to. It was quite nice then. But by the time the VIP era came, VIP became a very gungy sort of place. That's how we term it here in Australia. Very street, very raw, grimy. Yeah, very rough. There was often raids in that place because, number one, they used to close really late. I think it was like either 6 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd walk out and the sun was shining at you. You felt like you were a vampire or something. And there was always stabbings. You know, the police were raiding because drugs and knifings and license laws, you know, you weren't supposed to open that late. VIP holds a lot of memories for me because some of the best battles I was in would have been there, in a club anyway. And they had a big wooden floor, and you would walk in either on the right hand side or the left hand side, depending on which crew you were in, or you made it up on the night according to who you were friends with. And you know, the crew from this side would you know, enter the dance floor, and the crew on this side would enter the dance floor. And in between, at the back, is the DJ booth. Michael had a, what do you call it, one of those plate glass windows. It was smoky anyway. We couldn't hardly see him, and he could see us. And Michael knew what songs to extend. He knew what we wanted. And that was something quite rare back then, that you had a DJ that knew how to extend the song for the dancers. And it's unheard of now. Unheard of in Australia. We just don't have DJs that can look at the dancers. And I'm in a club atmosphere. I'm not talking about battles, organised events, because I have seen, yes, definitely, if there's organised events, there's some young DJs here that do know how to do that, but I think that they've learnt from our generation. And not necessarily me. I tried DJing, but that's not my element.